On 29 June 1995, at 5:52 p.m., the five-story Sampoong Department Store in Seoul's affluent Gangnam District suddenly collapsed. In less than 20 seconds, a modern luxury shopping center plunged into its basement, trapping over 1,500 people under thousands of tons of concrete and steel. The disaster killed 502 people and injured 937 others, making it the deadliest building collapse in peacetime South Korean history, and one of the most shocking examples of man-made tragedy in the modern era. In the early 1990s, South Korea was at the peak of its economic miracle. After decades of intense industrialization and export-driven growth, the country was rapidly transforming into a modern economic powerhouse. Gangnam District had become the ultimate symbol of this success, a dazzling area filled with luxury foreign brands, expensive cafes, towering apartments, and ambitious construction projects that represented the new Korean dream. The Sampoong Department Store opened in 1989 with great fanfare as a flagship shopping destination for the rising middle class and wealthy elite. Owned by the influential Lee family, it offered international designer clothing, gourmet restaurants, and a popular rooftop garden with an amusement area. Every day, thousands of shoppers, particularly fashionable women, young couples and families, visited the bright, air-conditioned halls, viewing it as a symbol of Korea's rising living standards and newfound prosperity. The Lee family, led by Lee Jun, was well connected in both business and political circles. Like many Korean business families during the rapid growth era, they maintained close relationships with local officials, which often helped them navigate regulations with ease. What most customers didn't know was that this political convenience had allowed the building to bypass critical safety requirements from the very beginning. The building was doomed by a series of serious and entirely preventable structural failures. Originally designed and permitted only as a four-story office building, the owners illegally converted it into a department store. They later added a fifth floor without any official approval or structural engineering assessment. This extra floor added thousands of tons of additional dead load to the structure. The building used a flat slab construction system where concrete floors rested directly on columns without supporting beams. This system already required very thick and heavily reinforced columns. However, many columns were built significantly thinner than required and contained far less steel rebar than building codes demanded. To install escalators and create wider open retail spaces, the owners ordered workers to cut large sections out of these critical columns, sometimes removing up to 30% of their cross-sectional area. This drastically reduced their load-bearing capacity. On the roof, 15 extremely heavy air conditioning units, each weighing several tons, were installed without any structural analysis or additional reinforcement. Over the years, the constant vibration from these units caused progressive fatigue and micro-cracks in the concrete slabs. By early 1995, the fifth floor was visibly sagging, with wide cracks spreading across the ceiling and concrete dust falling regularly. Multiple structural engineers and contractors warned the owners in writing that the building was at imminent risk of collapse. But these warnings were completely ignored in favor of continued business operations. On the morning of June 29, the danger was unmistakable. Large cracks had appeared in the fifth-floor ceiling and pieces of concrete were falling. At around 5 o'clock, management finally closed the fifth floor but made the fatal decision not to evacuate the rest of the building, fearing major financial losses during a busy shopping period. At approximately 5:50 p.m., loud cracking sounds echoed through the structure. Minutes later, the heavy air conditioning units crashed through the weakened fifth floor, triggering a chain reaction progressive collapse. In less than 20 seconds, the south wing pancaked downward, floor after floor slamming into the basement. Hundreds of shoppers and staff were buried alive under tons of rubble. The owner, Lee Jun, and several top executives had left the building only a short time earlier. The rescue operation was one of the most difficult and emotionally draining in South Korea's modern history. For 16 days, firefighters, police, soldiers, and civilian volunteers worked around the clock in extremely hazardous conditions. The debris pile was highly unstable, with massive concrete slabs balanced precariously. Heavy rain on the second day flooded some air pockets, causing several survivors who had made it through the initial collapse to drown. Rescuers faced agonizing decisions, whether to use heavy machinery that might crush people still alive or continue with slow, manual digging. Several survivors were rescued after more than a week. Park Seung-hyeon, a 19-year-old clerk, was pulled out alive after 17 days in a tiny air pocket. A woman named Oh Jae-hai survived 13 days. Rescuers communicated with trapped victims through small gaps, passing them water and words of encouragement. The psychological pressure on the rescuers was immense. Many later suffered from severe post-traumatic stress after hearing the voices of the dying slowly go silent. Families camped outside the site day and night, holding photos of their missing loved ones as hope gradually faded. The investigation exposed a shocking web of corruption. The Lee family had systematically bribed local officials and building inspectors for years to overlook serious safety violations. The case revealed how South Korea's rapid economic development had often sacrificed safety and proper procedure for speed and profit. Lee Jun was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. His son, Lee Han-sang, received a 7-year sentence. Several government officials were also convicted. The disaster sparked widespread public outrage and became a major turning point. It led to sweeping reforms in building codes, mandatory third-party safety inspections, harsher penalties for corruption in construction, and greater transparency requirements across the industry. The Sampoong collapse forced South Korea to reflect deeply on the true cost of its breakneck development. The 502 victims were ordinary people going about their daily lives, mothers shopping with children, young couples on dates, students enjoying their summer vacation, and dedicated employees simply doing their jobs. Their deaths were entirely preventable, caused not by nature, but by human greed, corruption, and indifference. Even decades later, the Sampoong collapse remains a painful scar on South Korea's national memory. It forced the country to confront the dark side of its rapid growth and led to lasting changes in how buildings are constructed and regulated. The true legacy of this tragedy is the hard-learned lesson that safety and human lives must never be sacrificed for profit or convenience.